When you move, you need a reliable company led by passionate folks, eager to assist its customers during a transitional process that needs to be smooth. Call Essential Moving Experts at 844-368-5750 for all your local and long-distance moving needs. You can rely on Essential Moving Experts. Mention the Big O Show and get $150 off. Family owned and operated, they offer free 30-day storage, full-service moving, fully licensed, bonded, and insured. Moving was never so easy. EssentialMovingExperts.com.
If you're a Miami sports fan, then there's only one store to go to, and that's Caneswear at Miami Fanwear in Davie. They're your one-stop shop for all your inner Miami CF, Canes, Dolphins, Panthers, and Marlins merchandise. They have hats, t-shirts, game day jerseys, and so much more. Located at 2511 South University Drive in Davie, and open 24/7 online at caneswear.com or innermiamiwear.com. Call them at 954-835-5597. Caneswear, the spot where inner Miami and all Miami sports fans shop. There's no need to drive around South Florida wasting valuable time looking for a new or certified pre-owned Acura. Go to the #1 volume sales dealership in the Southeast United States. Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. Purchase with pace and space in a dealership tailored to your needs. From home buying to providing that personal touch. Contact the 2020 Satisfaction Award winner Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. 888-776-5123. That's 888-776-5123. Or visit them at 15601 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines.
Statements or beliefs expressed on the following program by the host, guests, or callers are not necessarily the opinions of FantasyXS.com, Media Group Inc., ownership, management, sponsors, or website.
Like having the best guys on the field. And until we find out who that is, we got to keep trying whatever we need to get those guys on there. We're not there yet. That's obvious. You watch ball. Where do we need to improve? We need to improve there. We need to improve there quickly. And I think we have the capability to do so. And we have to continue to be really, really good leaders and really good coaches and find ways to make guys better and find ways to make it work so we can improve and have a better offensive performance. 9 points for us is not acceptable.
The warning flag is up. It's time to get ready for Miami Hurricanes football. Hurricanes pregame show on the SportsTalk305 Network. The show is mastered by Sean Stanley and Chad Shobe. Here's your hosts, Orlando Alzugaray and Mike McCoy.
It is Canes time. It's Saturday, baby, right here on the SportsTalk305 Network. Mike McCoy, Big O with you. We are locked and loaded. Sean Stanley, Chad Shobe. We're all set and ready to go. How you feeling, Mike? Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm feeling great. Happy game day. Been a long time. Anxious for Canes Nation and the Canes themselves to get back things the way they should be on that gridiron.
Yep. Should be a lot of fun. We got a loaded show for you. Andrew Ivins is going to stop by and join us at 2 o'clock. So we'll talk to the 247 Sports Insider, and we'll get his thoughts on what the Canes are doing, obviously recruiting, and Andrew's all over that for 247 Sports. So we'll have some fun with him. We'll get his thoughts from the periphery of what he sees from the Canes. Sam Dalton, I think is how it's pronounced. We'll ask him. Or Dalton. What do you think?
I'm gonna say Dalton.
Dalton? Okay, so we'll go with Sam Dalton. He is a writer for Middle Tennessee State, covering the team. So we'll get his thoughts on that team today. We get ready for the 3:30 kickoff. Remember, we'll be back in the afternoon with the post-game show, hopefully a happy post-game show. Manny Navarro will join us straight from the locker room, so he'll give us his perspective on everything going on with the Canes. So we'll have all the coverage for you pre and post. As always, we'll be back tomorrow for the huge, enormous game with the Dolphins and the Bills. So we'll have that pre and post game show for you. Micah Hyde, by the way, was just placed on the IR with a neck injury. He is done for the year. That is a huge loss because Micah and Jordan Poyer make maybe the best tandem of safeties in the NFL, if not number 2, number 3, or whatever, for argument's sake, or whatever it is. So that's a huge injury, by the way. And also, I saw Barry Jackson reporting 6 more affiliates on the CBS side asked the network for the Dolphins Bills to change the game they're carrying for Dolphins Bills. So yeah, it shows how much
it's a big game, man.
That's a great game. It's a big game, and obviously, you know, our local team is all part of it. So just to give you a couple of local notes, you know, going on with it, there's no soccer this weekend. Inter doesn't play till next Friday, September 30th against Toronto. And then the Marlins continue their series against the Nationals tonight at 6:10. So that's some of the stuff going on locally, just to kind of keep you guys informed in all of this. A game like this, it's strange, Mike, because this is not a sexy game, right? Like the first two, they're not sexy games, but it's strange. It's still important in the sense of, for Mario, for the players, you're building a culture, you're building a football team, you're trying to teach young men how to handle things the right way from week to week. And they've got to handle opponents the same way week to week. There can't be a letdown. And so just because, you know, you went to Texas A&M, that's part of the trick now this week. Find out who are the guys that are, I can't say taking it professionally because they are now getting paid. So, but technically, but you know what I'm saying? It's just human nature to kind of let your guard down, you know, but you did lose against Texas A&M. You didn't, even though you played really well, you just didn't finish. And that was a big problem. So those are things you've got to work on: finishing, tackling, catching the ball, doing, you know, you did really well defensively overall. The offensive line, you know, is playing well, but it's kind of like while it's not important in the big picture, it's still important in the sense of trying to develop your habits on a week in and week out basis.
Oh, you like read everything like you were in my head, because I was asking John Square.
That's
I'm sorry.
That's scary. That's scary. But go ahead.
I was asking John Square last Tuesday on the show on Hurricanes Watch. You know, he played on the national championship team in 2001, the greatest football team of all time. And I asked him, I said, look, I think I know what your answer is going to be, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are there any moral victories at a Saturday? And he was like, you know what? When you're Mario and you're in a position that you're building a program, I know nobody's going to want to hear no. My guys aren't going to want to hear no. But it's, in a sense, it is, because you're building habits, like you said. You know, they have to be creatures of habit. That's what athletes are. That's what these coaches are. That's what Mario is. You don't want to let A&M beat you twice. Back in 2016, first year of Mark Richt, when they lost that game at home against the Florida State Seminoles, the block at the rock is what they called it. Miami lost about 2 or 3 games after that, if I'm not mistaken. And then they finally, you know, came back and started winning games, ended up going to the bowl game in Orlando, beating West Virginia. So you have to, it's in the past, it's a week ago. If you want to be a good team, you have to make Middle Tennessee pay, Middle Tennessee State pay. That's what good teams do. Miami is not a great team yet. Miami is a solid team. You just don't want to get in your head and say, man, we went into Texas A&M and, you know, this should be easy. You can't roll out your helmet, because if I'm not mistaken, there's a good amount of Middle Tennessee State kids on this roster from the state of Florida. Great state of Florida. So this is somewhat of a homecoming for them. They're going to be up. Everybody else is going to want to play Miami. It's going to be a good test for the secondary as well because, this team scores points. They like to light up the scoreboard, put a lot of forward receivers out there. And so the secondary had a good showing last week. You cannot let down. You have to build consistent, positive, consistent habits. That's how you become great. That's how you become what you want to become. So, yes, it's a very important game in that sense. You don't just roll out your helmet and win in a game like this. You got to earn it.
Yep. And listen, that's the beauty of this game here. Like, listen, you had a lot of drops last week. So if you're the receivers coach, you're saying, I don't care who the opponent is.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys? I don't care if my grandmother's covering you. Catch the damn ball this week. So that way I know when the ACC games roll around, you're going to be better at catching the ball and finishing. Now, see, that's the part that's a little fishy because, unfortunately, finishing against Middle Tennessee State is not the same as finishing against Texas A&M or North Carolina or whoever else you have on your schedule in the ACC. That's going to be stiffer competition for you. You know what I'm saying? But it's just one of those things that it's kind of interesting that's why it's just a habit thing. And back when the Canes were great, the habit was even when the weak teams came in, they kicked their ass. And the good players, your starters, they were dying to get off the field so the backups can play, so the freshmen can play, the sophomores, the true freshmen, if they feel like, spending one of their, their years, their redshirting, blowing out their redshirt years. Okay, well, we'll play them or whatever. Let's find out about these guys. So to me, that's kind of the trick now. When you're a really good team, okay, let's run these guys. We're way better than them. Let's out-execute them. Let's play a clean game. And to me, that's what you've got to do against Middle Tennessee. I understand if you're going to make mistakes and you're going to have setbacks against Clemson, against Texas A&M, against good teams on your schedule, things aren't going to go smooth. Today's the kind of day where you need to execute and play like you are way better than them. And that's kind of what you have to get that feeling when you walk away from the game today.
100%. Miami is on paper the better team. You look at them, man for man, they should dominate in the trenches on both sides of the ball, skill positions, you name it, whatever the case is. So you're supposed to win by, 26 and whatever that number is, 26 and a half, 27.
25 and a half right now.
20,
yeah.
Oh, it's 25 and a half. Okay. Beat them by 30. Okay.
Easy.
Beat them,
yes.
Beat them by 30. And it should be easy if you execute, if you communicate, and if you do what you're told from the coaches. Now, this is the thing about this game. To me, it's not only a must-win, but it's a must-win convincingly because next week you're off. That could be good and bad. You could get rusty, or you can perfect your craft. We don't know how this team responds on a bye week yet. We know how they did in Manny's tenure. Okay, every time they had a bye, they came back losing. So, you gotta go. I wish it was kind of the other way around. I wish there was a bye this week and then Middle Tennessee to kind of prep yourself for a North Carolina team that's going to be visiting Miami Gardens in 2 weeks. But it isn't. It is what it is. But that's another reason why this game is important because there's a bye next week. So you gotta play. You gotta go into. You don't play well to go into a bye. All right, but you got to play well because you're going into a bye, and then you don't have anything. You don't want to come out cold against North Carolina. That bye could be potentially a bad thing for Miami.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. Here's the other thing. You saw how you dropped like a rock, okay, in the rankings. So you know how it is with the Canes. You don't want to lose this game. You don't want to have a poor showing because then again, the voters are going to say, yeah, they're the same Canes from years past. And Sean again. Look, Sean is the best, okay, and Chad is learning from Sean the best. So I'm sure Chad will be kicking ass just like Sean. But Sean put the perfect cut. How Mario started our show about, you can tell we're not there. You watch ball, you can tell. And we tried to explain that to you a couple weeks ago, even when they were struggling with a lesser team to beat them. This team is not there. They're nowhere near where they need to be Alabama, to be Georgia, to be Clemson, Ohio State, all those kind of teams. They're not there yet, dude. So it's imperative since you're not there, the perception's not there, the proof is not there, don't go screwing things up. Don't go taking Middle Tennessee State lightly. Don't go giving them any opportunities to take advantage of the situation, because then it's not gonna help you in the polls. It's not gonna help you in the respect matter, So that's a lot of people probably saw last week that if you watch the game, you're like, well, they lost. They played, the offense moved. You know what I mean? But they didn't close, and to me, they played a little conservative. But those are things that are going to linger for them, and that's the thing. Today, there can't be any question.
Nope.
You can't. When people are voting, they have to look and say, "Oh, well, no, they played Middle Tennessee State, but they kicked their ass."
Mm-hmm.
So they did what they were supposed to do. You walk away from a game like this, and you barely beat them, or you beat them ugly, and you screw up a lot. Or even if you lose, oh my God, I don't even want to think about that. That's what I'm saying. You're not going to get the respect in the polls, because the U has always had to do a little bit more than everybody else. So it's kind of like Tua.
Good analogy.
There's so much doubt in Tua by some people, not by me, but by a certain section of people, that, dude, Tua's going to have to he won this week and he played great. That's not enough. The week before, 270 yards. There was no running game. He did all right. Not enough. Oh, you got to beat the Bills. You know what I mean? Because that's where he's at now. He's kind of like the Canes. He's got to climb back out and prove that he's great, just like the Canes have got to come out of their, hole that they've been in for 20 years to prove they're great. But how do you do that? Dude, you have to have these moments where you treat Middle Tennessee State like they're Middle Tennessee State. You know what I mean? And then the next time these Texas A&M kind of games come around, you got to find ways to win these games.
Yeah, it's building. It goes back to building, and that's what it takes. Like you said, win convincingly. A lot of people don't want to hear this, but it's true. How you win, how you look, the eye test, optics matters in college football. And I've heard people argue with me, and I'll argue back. Listen, my Twitter, it's right there, okay? It always matters how you look in college football, even early in the season. Early in the season. People like to say, well, it matters more late. You're not wrong, but when you're Miami, it always matters. Miami dropped 12 spots last week after playing very well on the road, Kyle Field, 107,000 people, prime time, to a ranked team. Florida looks like crap at home against USF. Their quarterback doesn't throw a touchdown. They barely win, and they drop 2 spots.
Yep.
That's Miami.
Right.
That's how people view Miami. Okay. Yeah. So yes, put up 50. All right. And you want to know the thing about this too, like how I said about the
50, put up 50, but allow them to put up 6.
Exactly. 100%. Like you said, you did it. You said it perfect. Treat them like they're Middle Tennessee State. Okay.
You have to.
That's just go in there, kick ass, take names, and go home. So
let's be honest, Mike. Okay, let's talk this. Okay, because if you do your homework, you watch this thing, and I'm sure you did also. They lost to James Madison 44-7. James Madison is 2-0. I'm not here to brag about James Madison, but they lost to Colorado. I mean, they beat Colorado at Colorado State. They beat them 34-19. Colorado State is 0-3.
Exactly.
They beat Tennessee State 49-6. Tennessee State is 0-3. Their 2 wins are against 2 teams that are 0-6. Their loss is to a James Madison team who's 2-0. And again, I'm not here to brag about James Madison, but they were better than Middle Tennessee State 100%. By a lot, by 44-7. So let's not talk up this Middle Tennessee State team like it's some great shakes. No, they are defensively, they're 43rd in the nation in rushing, allowing 104, but they're 80th in passing, allowing 230. So Tyler Van Dyke, this is exactly what the receivers in Tyler Van Dyke need. They need a team that doesn't protect the pass very well. So you've got to take advantage of this. They're not that good. They can tell you all about the air raid offense and all this kind of stuff. Just go look at the numbers. Chase Cunningham has got 592 yards passing in 3 games and he's got 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He has a 72% completion percentage, but it's a lot of short passes overall. So this is not a good team. Treat them that way. You know what I mean? And you're home. Make it easy for yourself. I want to see the young guys, even though they're actually kind of young, but I want to see the other young guys, the other young guys come out in the second half and play some. I'd like to see Jake Garcia come in at some time in the third quarter and just, after the team comes out in the second half, puts together another draw and then bench Tyler Van Dyke's ass because you're up by 30 and put, put Garcia in there and let's have some fun. But that's what I want to see today because this is really not a good team, Mike.
No. And so, you also want to work on and see improvement in the things that failed last week. Special teams, had a kick blocked, had a muffed punt, drops, stupid penalties at crucial points. Yes. Why is that important? Number one, they're not supposed to happen. Number two, you don't want to have that happen this week, even if you do win, but then that's 2 weeks in a row that you have bad habits, a string of bad habits, and then a bye week to think about it even further, and then you open up your ACC schedule at home. That's not a good formula. You need to look, and I think this is a big game for Tyler in the sense that he gets his rhythm back, and I think he needs to go into the bye week having a 3-touchdown, 300-yard performance. I think that's big on him. And even if he doesn't just look good, it looks solid. You know what I'm saying? I'm not worried about the O-line because unlike most people, well, let me not say that. I take that back. I think a lot of people were expecting them to they didn't know what to expect from a lot of facets of the game last week. But the fact that nobody had anything to say negative about the offensive line was a huge whoa. And so it was a play of DJ Ivy, the fact that Miami dominated on both sides of the ball in the trenches, that was a huge thing. So the things that you did good at last week, keep up with that, but you also have to improve on the errors from last week because, like I said, going into a bye week with the same woes that you had for 2 weeks in a row, that's going to leave an ugly stench in the air.
Oh, dude, listen, you eliminate those penalties, the drop passes, the mistakes on special teams, and you walk away with a win.
You're going to win. Miami beat them
easily.
10,
easily. That game, you beat yourself. You
they didn't do anything special.
Every opportunity to win that game, and whether it was mistakes or maybe a little lack of aggressiveness, but either way, there has to be a mix there. And listen, maybe in defense, while I say it's a little conservative, maybe in defense, hey, the coaches still don't trust their team yet. So they're going to go in the conservative approach until they get to the point where they can trust everybody, not just the quarterback, but the receivers and everybody else, the line, whatever. So maybe that's the process for Mario. I don't know. We'll see.
Right.
And I will measure it again when those kind of moments come along again. Are you willing to take some chances? Because I look at the guy on Sundays, and he's willing to take chances. He's willing to be aggressive. And to me, you have to have that nature, I think, in college and in the NFL. You have to be aggressive. But there's no doubt, Mike, you don't even have to be aggressive last week if you don't screw up so much.
Yeah.
If you just play the game the right way, if you play clean football, you're looking at a 3-0 team, not a 2-1 team right now. And we're all going, wow, they climbed in the standings. They had a huge win at Texas A&M.
Top 10.
It'd be a completely different feeling right now. But again, that's part of coaching, and that's part of having the right players.
Right.
And Mario did not inherit the right players. Okay, he might have inherited some of the right players, but it's his job now to weed out the ones that don't belong. And he's already done some of that. But as you know, Mike, and everybody else that's watching, I'm not breaking any news here. You guys have been watching college football long enough. The first year a coach takes over, he's kind of assessing everything and everybody. And in the offseason, that's when he puts his arm around certain guys and says, hey, I like you personally. I really appreciate you being here, but I want to tell you, you're really not going to play much next year. Or probably, and so, he'll kind of give him the gentleman way of saying, you might be better off going to the transfer portal and finding a place because you're not going to have the stage you want here because we're going to try to find somebody. And he even said it in business cuts that, hey, we got to go out and find, the right people to get this thing done. And this is just part of the process, man. It just is. And that's why we've got to give this some time, unfortunately, to turn it over. But coaching wise, you do, no matter, even if you have lesser talent, you must teach them to play with discipline. And that's one thing they lacked last week, and it showed. And that's because you were playing a much better opponent than you did the first 2 weeks.
100%. I mean, some of that weeding out happened in the spring. I mean, there were I want to say I don't know why I have these two numbers in my head, but it's between 13 and 17 players that hit the portal, whether they were told to leave or they saw the writing on the wall or whatever the case was. It started in the spring. It's not going to stop. Mario is very transparent with the media, with parents, with players, with recruits. I'm always trying to improve this roster, whether it's via the transfer portal, whether it's a walk-on, whether it's recruiting. I'm always trying to find somebody. And what does that stem from? Because he lived it. He knew what it took to be great. These guys, look at the guys he played with, the culture he grew up with. It's like, you get hurt, you better hope you don't get hurt, because by the time you're healthy, you may not. And people say, you didn't lose your job to injury. Well, you did back then at Green Tree in Miami, because if your backup could do the same thing that you could, he was just 2 years younger, but he has a hot hand when you're healthy. Guess what? You're not going to have your job when you get back. And that's the way it happened. It's just the way it was when Miami was great. And listen, I have nothing to complain about when it comes to Cristobal, his decisions. Look at the staff he's put on paper. His recruiting is through the roof, epic. He has great coaches, teachers, and recruiters on this staff. Miami's on a roll in that sense. And on the recruiting front, which we'll talk to Andrew Ivins in a little bit, Miami's looking good, man. That loss did not hamper Miami in a negative way last week.
No, I don't think so, because it was a close one. And I think, listen, in the end, everything is there for you still, because it's ACC play is what matters. That's the bright side of that loss, is that it's really all about ACC play. If you're a national championship contender, then yeah, that's a hell of a loss for you right there.
Right.
That one sucks. That one hurts. Still doesn't hurt you all the way, because you could go out and win the ACC and then get yourself into the playoffs either way. But they're not that team yet. They're not ready to take over Clemson. So it's just, listen, man, just part of the process overall. Yeah. They'll figure things out. It's just going to take a little bit in order to get to that point. That's the bottom line, man. And we have to be patient here. And I know it's tough to ask a Canes fan to be patient. It is. All right, let's give our picks here. Middle Tennessee State and the University of Miami. Let's go over the lines with our LennyLocksmith.com lockdown segment. Let's make our picks right now. Here we go. Oh, I think I surprised Sean. That's why. And he's reaching for the open.
All good.
Time to lock it down. The Lockdown is brought to you by LennyLocksmith.com. Services in South Florida from Miami to Port St. Lucie. In Central Florida, LennyLocksmith.com locks it down in Orlando and Tampa Bay. Here's the Big O to tell you what needs to be locked down.
All right. University of Miami is favored by 25.5. The over and under is 53 here. Middle Tennessee State is plus 1,500 in the money line, and the University of Miami is minus 4,000 in the money line. So for every 4,000 you lay, you win $100. What a bargain! Yeah, I don't think I would ever tell you to take the money line. God forbid something happens there. But I love the spread. I know 25.5 is a lot, but we just talked about it in this half hour here to open it up. This team does not defend the pass very well. And I know that that's not necessarily Miami's strength, but you have enough speed, enough playmakers to make those kind of plays. You have the tight ends. and you have running backs that actually are very good wide receivers overall out of the backfield. I expect Miami to light them up. This is a great game for you to get healthy in the pass game. This is a great game for you to try to build some confidence with your wide receivers. Okay, you're not facing a tough secondary. I'm going to lay the 25.5 in this game, and I'm going over 53 in this game, okay? Because they're going to get lit up overall, I think, also on offense. So let's do it, baby. 53, over 53, minus 25.5. That's our A-Lenny lockdown segment right here on our Canes pregame show.
The Lockdown is brought to you by ALennyLocksmith.com. Lockouts or lock changes for home or business. Car key replacements and programming. All model cars. 24-hour service. Call them anywhere in South Florida at 855-869-5625. Go to the website at ALennyLocksmith.com where we lock it down.
All right. Are you ready? Andrew Ivins from 247 Sports is ready to join us. Give us 30 seconds. Andrew Ivins joins us right here on the Miami Hurricanes pregame show on the Sports Talk 305 Network.
If you're a Miami sports fan, then there's only one store to go to, and that's Caneswear at Miami Fanwear in Davie. They're your one-stop shop for all your Inter Miami CF, Canes, Dolphins, Panthers, and Marlins merchandise. They have hats, t-shirts, game day jerseys, and so much more. Located at 2511 South University Drive in Davie, and open 24/7 online at caneswear.com or intermiamiwear.com. Call them at 954-835-5597. Caneswear, the spot where Inter Miami and all Miami sports fans shop.
All right, ready to go. There he is, the man, the myth, the legend that is Andrew Ivins, 247 Sports. And follow him on Twitter at Andrew_Ivins and catch his work there at 247 Sports. How you feeling, my man? You feeling good? Did you survive Costco? Because
oh my gosh, are we even still in the cone?
Yeah. Huh?
I said, are we still in the cone of doom? I mean, it was crazy out there.
Yeah, we're kind of on the South Florida side. We're on the edge of the cone. We're inside the edge of the cone. We'll get those, gale force winds, 20, 30 miles and a bunch of rain, at least for now. Who knows, dude? Remember, Andrew was supposed to hit the Broward Palm Beach border, and it jogged south and it went right into Homestead and the Keys. So you just never know with these things. If it keeps jogging east or it jogs even more west and it goes towards our friends more in the Gulf, who the hell knows, dude? It's still too far away. But you know what? We have no choice. We have to prepare either way. Because, and folks out there, don't underestimate it. Wherever you're at in the state, in the Panhandle, I don't care where you're at in the state of Florida. I don't care if you're in Jacksonville. Whatever, anywhere in the state, Pensacola, everybody should be prepared all throughout the Gulf, as everybody should have plenty of experience with this. So, and let's be polite with each other. Let's help each other. Let's be nice. Let's not act like animals over there at Costco and Walmart and all that kind of stuff. Come on, man. All right. We're all together on this thing. But anyway, how you feeling, brother? You feeling good? You got your energy back from Costco?
I got it back. I do, man. Big day yesterday. We had the commitment. Hakeem Williams, the receiver from Fort Lauderdale, Stranahan. He picks Florida State. That was quite the draining kind of coordinating that commitment ceremony. So I'm good, man. Just watching football, ready for Dolphins Bills on Sunday. Good weekend of football ahead.
Yeah, it's a great weekend of football. First, before we get into the game, talk to us a little bit overall of your assessment of what Mario's done on the recruiting side and what he's working on now, what could be on the horizon. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, Mario's a guy that eats, sleeps, breathes recruiting, and I think we all knew that when he was hired. I mean, that was the case when he was at Alabama. That was the case when he was at Oregon. When he came here, he was going to go after the best players. And we've seen them make some big splashes on the recruiting trail. He's got 2 quarterbacks committed. We can talk about those guys if you want, but I think the one headliner in the class that to me really stands out is Francis Mauigoa, offensive lineman. Mario obviously has a history. He's a former O-line coach, but he's always going to get the big bodies up front. And, since I've covered this program, since I've been doing this, Mauigoa is without a doubt the best guy I've seen. He's the best guy that they have got committed and potentially signed. So I think he's doing a good job. They're sitting in, I think, number 9 in our rankings right now. We'll see how it shakes out. Things get it's hard to project the current landscape just with the NIL stuff and what's going to happen. I think when we get to December, right before that early signing period, and then into January, things are going to get interesting in terms of kids maybe making decisions, and NIL will be a factor with the collectives and stuff like that. But Mario's doing a good job. Still needs to get a few pieces. Wide receiver, I think they got to kind of figure that out. They got 2 committed, but to me, Miami's struggling in the passing game. They need a true number 1 receiver, and that's kind of been the case for the past few years. I thought some of the guys on the roster now would be those individuals, but they haven't really panned out. So, I think he's doing great, but still some work left on the table.
Thanks for joining us, Andrew. I just wanted to get your perspective on it because a couple of years back, I asked Larry Bluestein on it, and I actually don't remember what his response was, but I'm always interested to know what you feel between when it comes to Miami getting a local, big-name, national 5-star recruit that everybody wants. Let's say a Shamar Stewart or a James Williams, right? Is it more important to the program to land that local whale or prove to the country that you can go nationally and grab a big-time quarterback out of California like Jake Garcia?
Oh, I think Mario's recruiting national right now. And why? Well, when he was at Oregon, the state of Oregon doesn't really produce a ton of football talent. So he went and cultivated relationships with kids around the country. Jaden Rashada, the quarterback you're referencing from California, that's a kid Mario talked to when he was at Oregon. He visited Oregon, so he already had that relationship. Same thing with Francis Mauigoa. That's a kid that's originally from American Samoa, lived in Hawaii, then California. So I think Mario right now, him and his staff have leaned on some of those relationships they built at previous stops, and we'll see what transpires. I think with the local kids and Miami under Mark Richt, under Manny Diaz, that they got a few of them in the boat, but the big issue has been the SEC powers, the Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, and we're seeing even Texas A&M do this now. They come down to South Florida and they kind of get what they want. And when Mario was hired, I thought he kind of put a stop to that or make it much harder. We're seeing a little bit of it now, but Kirby Smart and Nick Saban are still really, really good on the recruiting trail. So to me, I think it's a smart play by them to go a little bit national now. In the upcoming cycle, though, the 2024 cycle, I want to see what happens with some of those blue chip kids. There's 2 5-star wide receivers at Chaminade Madonna Prep right there in Hollywood. Jeremiah Smith, Josiah Trader. Those are kids that like Miami early on, but we've seen the story play out. Then they end up going somewhere else. So Mario's already been recruiting them for 1 year. Do these kids stay or do they go somewhere else? That I think will say a lot about his tenure and what they're doing on the recruiting trail if they can get those 2.
And is it as fickle as it looks? Depends on how they perform this year too. That Mario has to, in other words, you can recruit them and you can text them and you can romance them as much as you try, and the parents and everything. But if your team doesn't perform well, like last week there were a lot of undisciplined type of situations that you're like, yo, what's going on here? If that stuff lingers throughout the year, it's fickle, isn't it? It's pretty bad that will hurt recruiting. He's got to perform on the field in order to kind of close the deal on what he's doing off the field, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, look, if you're a 16, 17-year-old kid, what have you seen the past 5 years from Miami on the big stage? They've had one of those, what I call kind of a standalone road games. They played Alabama last year. LSU a few years ago when Joe Burrow was there. They played at Clemson when the entire world's watching, and Miami hasn't shown up. And I wrote that going into the Texas A&M game. I mean, there was a stage where they could have made a big statement under Mario. Hey, things are going to be different, and Jeremiah Smith, that kid I just referenced, and I know he's only an 11th grader in high school. I mean, after the game, he's tweeting, "Hey, come on, Canes!" I think there's some. What I'm getting to is there's some kids out there that are optimistic and want to see Miami back. And when we talk local recruiting, I think what people don't realize is all the kids down here. When you're down here, all you do is hear about the struggles of Miami. That's everyone talks about. That's on the radio. So I think that gives the kids kind of a perspective about where the Hurricanes stand. So I think the biggest thing for Mario is going to be showing that they're a contender first in the ACC and then push into that college football playoff. They do that, it's going to be much easier to keep these blue chip kids home. So not sure if that answers your question, but that's just kind of my read on it.
No, I'm with you there. At least, by the way, and what's left of radio. All right, go ahead, Mike.
I'm wondering if the feeling of, because I haven't spoken to any recruits. I mean, I just hear what other people have to say and, so on and so forth. But it feels to me like, it's hard to say that you did have a good showing on the road at a place like Kyle Field in a loss, only putting up 9 points. But depending on who you talk to, Miami outplayed Texas A&M big time. So, I mean, you kind of went over it in the sense of recruits. Did Miami and did Mario come out of that game looking better or worse than they did after, say, Florida 2019, Alabama 2021, or LSU 2018? Because, these big time early season tests by the Gators, they passed theirs beating Utah. LSU lost to the hands of FSU in New Orleans. So those two programs passed their two early tests, and I thought it kind of looked bad on Miami in that sense that they couldn't pass theirs.
Well, again, referencing that Texas A&M game, when I wrote in the days leading up, I mean, you just rattled off those big standalone SEC games. I mean, Miami was blown out, and really all 5 of those, aside from the game against Florida, which went down to the stretch. But more importantly, in the first, I think, quarter, they were outscored like 60-3 in those games. So they haven't shown up. And I think for us, we're not younger recruits or anything. The optics are a bit different when we're looking through it through our lens. But to me, I think kids just want to see a winner. And what hurts with the Texas A&M loss, if Miami wins that, now they're 3-0. Think about when Florida State comes to town, and obviously that's going to be a sold-out game. It's going to be a crazy atmosphere. But once the city and the communities behind Miami, I mean, Hard Rock is rocking, and kids like that. I always go back to the 2018 game against Notre Dame, and when they blew out the Irish, a lot of people reference that was one of the loudest games they've ever been to. I can't remember which ESPN personality said that, but man, that atmosphere, that's what kids want. So I think that's where the Texas A&M loss hurts. Yeah, they look good. At the end of the day, though, like, kids are looking at records. I mean, how many of those kids actually watch the game, or is it more of just scrolling through social media and seeing a final result? So that's where I think it stings. But, if you're smart and you're thinking big picture, yeah, Miami took a step forward a little bit. We'll see what Texas A&M does the rest of the season. They didn't seem to be outclassed. They didn't seem to be, completely – it wasn't like the Alabama game. It wasn't like the LSU game. So I think that's progress. But, man, a win would have done wonders for them in terms of how people view the trajectory of the program.
Well, remember, and I'd like to hear from both of you on this, okay? Because here's where Miami is stuck, and they are so different than almost every program in college football. And Tyler Van Dyke, by the way, shed the light on it earlier in the week when he talked about how he loves going on the road because he loves the college atmospheres. And, at Hard Rock Stadium, we really don't have a college atmosphere. And so now here's the conversation, right? And it goes in different directions. How much does it hurt that the University of Miami football team, let's just call it like we see it, it's the 6th pro team in town? Miami is one of those cities that has 5 pro teams. So we have all the pro teams in town, and we treat the Canes like a pro team because it's a private school. Half the kids aren't even from this country. When you walk onto the campus, you'll see it. Half the kids are taking their diplomas or their degrees, and they're going out back to their countries with that education. The other half of the kids, they probably come from other parts of the country, very few locally, very few of us can send our kids. My daughter did a semester at the University of Miami medical program because she had a scholarship because she was at FIU and then they gave it to her also at the U, and she was able to. I could never afford to send her at the U, like most people that live in this town. We can't send our kids to the U. So it's a weird dynamic that the University of Miami has because they're basically treated like a pro team. You play well, we root for you, we pack the stadium. You don't, we're gone. But if you go to Tennessee or you go to Alabama or you go to Michigan or Ohio State or Texas or whatever, it doesn't matter who they play. It doesn't matter what week they play. It doesn't matter if they're good or they're bad. There's going to be a ton of students that are going to be drunk off their asses and screaming and rooting for that team regardless. And those kids walk into that atmosphere. And in this me culture, I almost feel like it's even more important than ever because they want the facilities. They want the big press conferences so they can put on the right hat when they declare all this and that. And so if they don't see those atmospheres, if they don't see those facilities, if they don't see the people packed in the stadiums, you just wonder how much that makes the hill that they're fighting much steeper than Ohio State, than Florida State, than Texas, than Oregon, and all these other schools that already have that natural atmosphere, win or lose.
I mean, I'll say this, obviously I think Miami's probably upset that Tyler Van Dyke got clipped up, and I'm sure there's some people probably fuming in Coral Gables. I mean, not to push back on you, I agree with a lot of the stuff you said. I think at the end of the day, though, these kids want to know, hey, am I going to get developed? Am I going to play on Sundays? Am I going to be drafted early? And really, Miami's had some guys that have made the league, Jalen Phillips, Gregory Rousseau, but it hasn't been the NFL factory that it used to be. And I think that's where it really hurts Miami, right? Why are kids going to Georgia? Why are kids going to Alabama? Well, they know I can go there and heck, I don't even have to start and I can be drafted. I mean, Georgia, 5 first-rounders on defense?
Tyndall. The Dolphins. He wasn't a full-time starter, and he got drafted.
So I think it comes back to, if Miami wins, people are going to show up. So that's where it starts, right? But then you got to get guys and you got to develop them and you got to get them to the next level. And I think Mario, with what he's recruiting at the top end of his class, I mean, those are guys that should play on Sundays. But to me, that's what this is. In the NIL landscape, kids are going to go wherever right now. But if they're thinking big picture, they want to know that they're going to make the league. That's what it really is. And I think if you look at any kid at Miami Central and Miami Northwestern, yeah, sure, there's a ton of pressure to stay home, right? But if you're in that community, you're in that neighborhood, and you say, well, hey, Alabama wants me, Georgia wants me, is anyone going to push back against that? I mean, why would they? You go there, you make the league. So I think that. I think that's what's not being talked about enough. Everyone wants to make.
But are they more materialistic now than they were 20 years ago and 30 years ago? Because it just seems like because Miami didn't have anything materialistic 15. Well, they weren't doing anything 15, 20, 25, 30 years ago when they were pumping people into the league left and right. They didn't have any facilities. They couldn't compete with they didn't even come close with coaching staff and facilities with everybody else yet. They were surpassing everybody else, but it just seems like now it's a war. It's a wars race, an arms race, and now finally they're spending the money for the arms, the coaches, the facilities, and then you wonder also the atmosphere, how much that hurts at times, because how much a kid that you just said Mario's recruiting out of state, even out of South Florida. Well, you're going to go recruit a kid that's in Alabama or in Tennessee or in California. And then he went and visited all those other schools that have that incredible atmosphere. You just wonder how much that kind of is a setback.
No, I think it is. And you also got to understand the current landscape kind of in South Florida. I mean, all these kids in the spring and in the summer, they do these bus tours. They leave Miami and they go up and they tour the SEC and sometimes get into Big Ten country and they see those facilities. I also think the facilities aspect hurts Miami. And I know Mario's been pushing to get that job taken care of. But I mean, when you go to some of these places, it's completely different than what they have in Coral Gables. And I think that plays a factor as well.
Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, when you sign on a dotted line in December or February, whenever it is now that they want to sign to Miami, you already know what you're getting. Okay, you know that when you play on a Saturday, that it's likely not going to be a 60 to 70,000 crowd person crowd, because crowds are only going to come when Florida's in town, Florida State's in town, maybe Virginia Tech if they're good, maybe UNC if they're good, and that occasional big time out of conference game. That's number one. Okay. Number
two is it'll never be 70 because they eliminated those seats. But go ahead.
There you go for the scoreboards. Number two, the other thing is when Miami was winning, when they fielded the best college football team that anybody has ever seen, that OB was empty for the most part. Okay, so that even tells you right there that Miami can be winning. They can literally field the best team that anyone has ever seen in the college in college football, and 40,000, 50,000.
But is it harder 22 years later with these kids now? That's the thing I ask.
And yes, I was getting to that. It is harder because you are 100% right. Kids, and a lot of it is social media. A lot of it is guidance. I don't think these kids have the greatest guidance. Most of them probably are lacking that, or I don't know what the percentage is. But in any event, yes, it's harder. They want the glitz. They want the glam. They want the attention. They want their spotlight. And so Mario recognized that. And listen, Mario only took the job with certain parameters. Look, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. If I can't get it, I'm not taking the job. So Miami, he knows what it takes to win. He saw what it was at Alabama. He saw what Butch did. And guess what? He was one of the best recruiters on that Butch staff that built the best college football team we've ever seen. He knows what it takes to get it done. He's having these recruits come in looking at these renderings of this 3 to 5 story facility that Miami's going to have on campus. That's going to have an NIL department. That's going to have the new weight room. It's going to be a football central facility. And so that's coming. The kids know it. It's not there now. We just spent money on a temporary locker room. The commitment is there. So it's just going to take a while for it to actually finish being built. But that's par for the course. It's like you said, it's a 6 pro team, and it's going to take Miami probably more than winning to have a consistent 50,000 plus person crowd in the game. Look, there was more than 50 for the first 2 home games.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you want? What do you want? And the other one, the last one was a 12 o'clock kick.
That's the buzz of the selling of the season tickets. And there weren't those butts in seats, but those were sold seats. So
I thought that was attendance. I thought it was attendance.
Yeah, Did it really look like the number?
The last one didn't. The first one, yes. The last one didn't. But I know what you're coming. I know what you're saying.
It's kind of shady. All right, Andrew. Let's wrap it up with this. This game here, is this the panacea for the passing offense? Right, receivers dropping balls are not that good. They need to start getting better. Tyler Van Dyke is probably a little frustrated with everything. Well, you're facing a Middle Tennessee State that is actually pretty poor against the pass. If it's going to wake up, this is a nice time to wake up, right, this week?
Absolutely. I think that's the storyline and what you got to watch. You got to let him cook, get him out of his funk. I think the biggest thing, and I'm not around the program as much as I once was, but just kind of putting out some feelers, talking with different people, and just knowing the landscape of the roster, they got to figure it out at wide receiver. Xavier Restrepo isn't the most talented wide receiver in that room, right? But why is he so vital to that offense? Why is he the go-to target for Tyler Van Dyke? I think it's because he plays hard and he cares. That was the case when he was at Deerfield Beach. And to me, I know I'm being critical of these guys, and we rank them high, Brashard Smith, Romello, Brinson, but man, I always go to that fourth quarter. I've been replaying it. I mean, on the 4th down conversion, Brashard Smith, I mean, yeah, was it a bad throw? Yeah, sure. I mean, was it not where it needed to be? But it was a catchable ball. He dropped it, and it didn't even look like he cared. So I think they need to figure that out. And, it was interesting if you go back to the preseason camp, Mario and those guys were super critical in any media session of the wide receiver play. And then right before the season, they started praising him. So I think that was a tactic, a coaching kind of tactic, trying to get those guys going. And it just really hasn't worked out. And, I don't know what the answer is. Maybe get the tight ends a little bit more involved. I'm
higher percentage. Hey, man, get the running backs. You know, Mike's talked about this several times. They're really good receivers. They're running backs out of the backfield. The tight ends.
Right. Jalen
These
Knight
are
is
higher, yeah, these are higher percentage passes, Andrew.
Jalen Knighton to me is a chunk play waiting to happen. The way he's able to get out of space and that lateral movement. I mean, it feels like, you know, you don't want to scheme up, hey, he's got to get X amount of touches, but I think they need to try to unlock that. I think Elijah Arroyo, and don't get me wrong, I'm a big Will Mallory fan. He's a guy that's been essentially a soldier for the program. He's been around for so long, but Arroyo to me is a guy that can play on Sundays one day. Get him more involved, and you know, we'll see. But against Middle Tennessee, I think you get your guys some confidence, and hopefully they don't find themselves in a situation, if you're a Miami fan, where they are in a dogfight early on. Like you want to get these guys going. And if I'm Mario, yeah, you worry about injuries, but man, let Tyler keep playing and let him find his groove in a rhythm. Because if you go back to last season, you know, I think he was hot, and he's a streaky player. Once he's hot, he's hot. So got to try to get that going.
I wouldn't be surprised if that tight end is growing some gray hair as long as he's been here. I mean, he's going to graduate and then also collect Social Security.
You know, Will's because he was hurt a lot in high school. So I actually drove up one time to see him play in Jacksonville, and you know, Todd Hartley, the former Miami coach, he was always telling me, hey, this is a dude. And it's like, dude, every time I see him, he's hurt. And then I went up there, I think it was like a Thursday night up to Jacksonville. I'll never forget, it was cold. So it was like October, that first kind of like little cold wave in Florida. And he was awesome. And every time I see Will, he'll come up to me and talk to me. He's the nicest guy. He's a total Jacksonville bro, as I would call him, guy that goes to the players at TPC. But I'm a big fan of him. And, you know, it's cool to see him still there. And, you know, I think he's someone that Miami fans should, you know, be proud of. Like a Mike Harley, those guys that ride it out and they produce for so long. And with Will, he's just overcame those injuries and all that stuff. So I'm a big fan of him.
Duval County. All right, yeah. Follow him on Twitter at Andrew_Ivins. What are you working on, man, over there at 24/7 Sports, so folks can subscribe and check you out?
You know, my roles have changed a lot. So I do.
You climb the ladder. You're just getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah. So
I'm surprised you even returned my phone call as big as you.
So we do a show every Monday and Wednesday, kind of on YouTube on the 24/7 Sports channel. It's called Preps to Pros. So we talk recruiting, everything to the NFL, but it's really about roster management and personnel and looking at trends and big picture stuff. But you know, we're guys that go out and see the kids, and we can kind of connect some dots. So that's kind of the focus of the show. So I'm doing that, and then every weekend I write winners and losers from the results of that Saturday, and you know, who won the weekend when it comes to recruiting and losing, and that's kind of became my baby a little bit. It's fun, you know, because you see the scores, but what does it mean big picture? And the closer we get to December, things get interesting. So that's what I'm working on.
Always must read. Excellent work by you, sir. Always love watching your star climb, man. Andrew, as always, thank you, my brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
You got it. My pleasure. Our pleasure. Our honor. There you go. Andrew Ivins, 24/7 Sports or 247 Sports. I don't know, dude. I say both, and I never really know if it's 24/7 Sports or 247. It sounds like it's 24/7, but wouldn't you put like a slash between the 24/7? I get it. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yeah, I get all of that. It's kind of confusing. But anyway, if you put the slash, it would make a lot more sense. You know what I mean? Yeah, they can get O.J. Simpson to be a sponsor. Slash. All right, he's really good at it. You got Mike McCoy's Twitter feed right there. You can follow me also on Twitter. Remember, we're going to be back in the afternoon after the game. The second the game ends, when the clock ticks 0, that's when the post game starts. And we'll have Manny Navarro on. We'll have all kinds of stuff. We'll have our reaction from the game. Sam Dalton. I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced. We will ask Sam. He is a Middle Tennessee writer. He follows the team, so we'll get his thoughts on Middle Tennessee going into this game. He's going to join us at 2:45. By the way, if you do need to make a sports investment, well, folks, we have options for you. BetUS, proud sponsor of our platform, and BetUS is back for its 28th year of NFL and NCAA action. BetUS offers the industry's biggest sign-up bonuses, up to 200%, man. That's awesome. BetUS has all your favorite leagues, including the NFL, NBA, MLB, NCAA, and they offer everything, including live betting, MMA, golf, horses, esports, and, of course, prop bets galore. BetUS also has hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest European slots with live dealers, and they're waiting for you at the tables. And BetUS is a sports book with integrity and longevity, and you know that you are going to get paid. That's what it's all about. Go to BetUS, that's betus.com right now, and get up to 200% in bonuses with our promo code Big O. Nobody in the industry gives you better discounts than BetUS. Again, join now and use our code Big O, and you will get up to 200% in bonuses on your first deposit. Nobody beats that. Head to betus.com and join today. That's BetUS, where the games begin. All right, let's take a quick break. Give us 2 minutes. Mike McCoy and myself are back on the Miami Hurricanes pregame show on the Sports Talk 305 Network.
If you're a Miami sports fan, then there's only one store to go to, and that's Caneswear at Miami Fanwear in Davie. They're your one-stop shop for all your inner Miami CF, Canes, Dolphins, Panthers, and Marlins merchandise. They have hats, t-shirts, game day jerseys, and so much more. Located at 2511 South University Drive in Davie, and open 24/7 online at caneswear.com or innermiamiwear.com. Call them at 954-835-5597. Caneswear, the spot where inner Miami and all Miami sports fans shop.
When you move, you need a reliable company led by passionate folks, eager to assist its customers during a transitional process that needs to be smooth. Call Essential Moving Experts at 844-368-5750 for all your local and long-distance moving needs. You can rely on Essential Moving Experts. Mention the Big O Show and get $150 off. Family owned and operated, they offer free 30-day storage, full-service moving, fully licensed, bonded, and insured. Moving was never so easy. EssentialMovingExperts.com.
Hey guys, this is Hayden Hurst, NFL tight end. I'm partnering today with Red Recover. We're going to run you guys through some drills. I started using Red Recover last year, my 4th year in the NFL. It just helps me on Mondays after games, get my recovery process started, get back into the fold of the week, and get ready for the following Sunday. And if you want to recover like me, use Red Recover.
Hour number 2 of the program. There you go. See that Nature B giving me that energy that I need to keep going. I love it. Mike McCoy, Big O with you. Sam Dalton will be joining us, or Dalton will be joining us in just a few minutes at 2:45. We'll get the breakdown from Sam. We'll get his thoughts on the game. We'll get him to break down Middle Tennessee State so we get to know a little bit more about what you're about to see for the next couple of hours over at Hard Rock Stadium. I don't know if it's still raining. I think it's not raining as much. Remember, we're back tomorrow, all right? And we will start getting you ready at 11 a.m. for the Bills and the Dolphins. Enormous game tomorrow for the Miami Dolphins. A great opportunity to go 3-0. Really tough team, a team that's been in their way for a long time now. So maybe they can cross that bridge when they get there. That would be really nice to cross that bridge and prove that you belong. So we will have that coverage for you starting off at 11 a.m. Kickoff will be at 1 p.m. tomorrow, and then we'll be back for the post-game show. All right, so Mike, when we start talking a little bit about the Canes, one of the guys that I've personally been very critical of is DJ Ivey. And DJ played a good game last week, actually. And listen, better to play a good game against Texas A&M and start to improve your play. Now, I'm not even close to saying that he's improved play or anything like that, because it's been way too inconsistent throughout his career, right? But this is an offense this week that likes to pass the ball.
Right.
So DJ Ivey, okay, it's time for you to, start showing consistency. If you want us to, at least if you want people like me to start believing that you actually are making progress, you need to start stringing games together and playing well. And I would like to see him and some of the other guys really step up this week.
No, 100%. And the last thing you want from DJ Ivey is to have a subpar game followed by probably the best performance in his career. I say probably because, all right, that's, it could be a stretch, whatever. But in my mind, that is probably
he hasn't had a good career, bro. I mean, that was pretty good last week for him. And listen, again, you weren't playing a great offense either, because Texas A&M's offense wasn't on track. So maybe that helped you also. You never know. But this offense probably is a pass offense. The coach has been there for a while. It's an offense that's been established for a while. So there's a good chance that this offense, even though it may not have the talent that the one had last week, these guys are probably more comfortable in that offense than Texas A&M was, because clearly the coach had not figured out things over there on offense yet.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Obviously, when you make a quarterback change, when you do, like when Jimbo did before a big game like that, it probably hints to, I made the wrong decision in the first place, in having Haynes King start the first 2 games of the season. But he did that probably knowing, because, he probably fits well, because maybe this O-line isn't where I need it to be. So his escapability, whatever the case was, he made
he thought big picture his team was going to be better with that guy.
100%.
And unfortunately, he was wrong, because short term, he was better off with the other guy until this guy was ready to really take off, and he just wasn't. And that happens, man.
Right.
That happens sometimes.
But back to DJ, the last thing you want, and he seems to me, he seems like the type of guy that his confidence is like a lot of people, I guess, maybe, but in sports, like, you gotta be confident in what you're doing. But if you depend on your confidence a little bit too much, rather than knowing, like, you could have that next play mentality and just forget about the last play, I think DJ gets down on himself. Without me knowing who he is, I've never spoken to DJ a day in my life. This is totally from the outside looking in and having no inside perspective. It just seems like he gets down on himself, and then that carries, and then, and he's also, in my opinion, probably leads the universe in having big-time plays completed on him when he's had picture-perfect coverage. I mean, it happened in the Bethune game. The Bethune game. I can't remember if it was a Bethune game or the Southern Miss game. But in one of those games, there was a pass completed on him, and he was draped over the receiver, and it was everybody like, oh, here's the same old DJ. And I'm like, that is...
Yeah, it's the ball skills. Those are things that you worry about him, because it's the most frustrating thing at times for any fan or media member or coach is when you see a defensive back in position to make a play but cannot find the ball. And it's like, yo, dude, that's kind of part of your job. You got to be able to track the ball. You got to be able to make a play on the ball. You got to have some body control. You got to be able to deflect passes. And those are things that it's not just a DJ Ivey thing. It's kind of been a thing for the secondary that so far I haven't seen a lot of great ball skills out of this secondary.
Yeah, I mean, and look, you say last week, and when I say you, I mean in general, not you specifically. But you say last week, this is the week to do it. Primetime, SEC, or whatever. Okay, they played well, but this is a different type of test. It may not be the same quality of opponent, but They put up points. They're going to throw the ball, so you're going to be tested. The rush pass rush is going to be tested. What MTSU does to counter that? Maybe get the ball out a little quicker. Who knows? But going back to Ivy, man, you have to follow up last week's game with a similar or better performance. All right, I think that's very important going into a bye week. All right, so that way you have that in your bag. I played 2 good games instead of I played a good game and I stunk one up against a lesser opponent, per se or whatever. But it's very important for him and the entire secondary, like you said. This needs to be a complete team win. All 3 phases of the game need to perform today. Special teams, number 1, in my opinion. All right. Number 1, in my opinion. Yeah. Offense and defense.
And we'll ask Sam how good they are on special teams, Middle Tennessee. Because obviously Miami did not perform well on special teams.
Right. No, of course. And then, we talked about it last week after the game. You have a blocked field goal. You miss one. So that's 6 points. Let's just say Miami puts up 3 points on the drive that did not happen when Tyreek muffed that punt. That's 9 points. Miami lost by 8. So special teams has not been special for Miami. All right. They were good last week for A&M. That punter had Miami drilled, backed up in almost every possession. Miami had the ball for 11 minutes in the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken, last week. It was definitely more. I believe it was at least 10. But Miami dominated the time of possession in that quarter, 36 minutes for the game as a whole. My magic number was 40. They didn't get there. App State held the ball for 41 minutes. But Miami needs a complete victory. They need everything to be clicking for them because, like I said, that bye week can be bad if Miami isn't playing how they need to be versus an opponent that they should dominate on both sides of the ball.
Well, we talked about this earlier. They're actually pretty good against the run. They're 43rd in the nation, allowing 104 yards, but passing, they're 80th, and they're allowing 230 through the air. This is the game where, at least if the receivers want to wake up, this is a game that you can try to feel better about yourself because it looks like you can test Middle Tennessee, through the air. Now, on the flip side, because they've done a good job against the run overall, and I know the competition hasn't been, very stiff lately with Colorado State and Tennessee State, who are both 0-6 combined. But still, that's going to be a nice thing for the offensive line, who has done a pretty good job. Mm-hmm. Mirabal and company, by the way, props to them because that has been, watching the Dolphins and watching the Canes, they've both been disasters on the offensive line. It's nice to see some daylight, some real positive stuff coming out of they're not where they need to be. They're not mauling people. They're not dominant or anything.
But they're better.
But pretty damn solid overall. They're doing a good job. So this is a game where, you got to work on your running game against a decent run defense. But if you want to, fix your ills of your passing game or start to fix them, man, here's your opportunity so you can build a little confidence going into ACC play.
So we all know what happened last week. If Miami was being credited for scoring points between the 20s, they would have won that game by 100 points, right? So in the red zone, everybody has their own solution as to what they want. To me, it's a very simple fix. If Miami's going to go out there and say, all right, let's throw the ball. Miami has 85 that you can flex out wide for a fade. 23, Jaleel Skinner, 80 in Arroyo. Redding is great at 50-50 balls. Miami has height out there. I want to see a fade. I am dying to see somebody call that play and just flex. You don't need experience to run a fade. You need skills. You throw it up. I'm sure that they practice this plenty.
Although it looks like they lost one of the guys that may have had the best skills this week at wide receiver. No, not Restrepo. The other kid. I'm brain farting now. That he just came back from he came back from suspension and had a couple catches last week.
Oh, Jacoby George, with his foot. Yeah, that's gonna, and look, Miami countered that.
Dude, that guy actually, when I saw him, I was like, hey, wait a minute. Mm-hmm. That guy.
He stands out.
Right, he stands out. And he got injured, man. That sucks.
Yeah, no, what could go wrong went wrong, whatever. But look, it's supposed to be next man up. Like Ken Helm is saying, you need Smith to step up. Everybody needs to step up, okay? My personal fave, say what you want, he hasn't shown much except that highlight catch against Central Connecticut State last year. Romello Brinson is a baller. Okay. People have told me that he's been getting reps at all three positions, and he's been learning all three receiver positions, which is great. But that's the talent right there that Miami, I think, can be the number one guy. Okay, he can do it all. He's not the speediest guy, but I've seen great receivers without blazing speed.
Yeah, Osborne wasn't great, but he was clutch. That sumbitch was clutch. All right, you know who's going to step up and is also clutch? I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right. Sam Dalton. I'm not exactly sure. We're going to ask Sam here. We're going to bring him aboard to talk a little Middle Tennessee State. He covers Middle Tennessee State on a daily basis, and he is kind enough to join us now on the program. Good afternoon, Sam. All right, so how's it pronounced? Like, my last name is Alzugaray. It's all left up. So, when the teachers, Orlando, and I'm here, don't worry about it. I know who you're talking about. So, pronunciation, please.
Dalton. Like Dalton Abbey.
Dalton. Okay, there you go. Dalton. There you go. All right, so Sam Dalton joining us, Middle Tennessee State writer, covering the team on a daily basis. All right, well, Sam, you were there in the batter's box waiting and listening to some of our conversations. One of the things that we just talked about is Miami's passing game has kind of been iffy. The receivers really have been inconsistent. Nobody's like step up to become an alpha yet. And then there were a lot of drop passes last week. And looks like Middle Tennessee State is actually doing a better job against the run than the pass. So talk to us a little bit about the challenges this week, Middle Tennessee State stopping the pass, and how good are they when it comes to that?
Well, I think a little bit of the pass and run yard disparity has to do with the fact that Middle has been playing way ahead the past two games. So, they were up 27-0 at halftime against Colorado State. We're up 42-0 at halftime against Tennessee State. So they're just facing only pass plays for, a good 3/4 of those games. That being said, I do think that the pass defense comes more from the defensive line and linebackers getting a rush than so much from pass breakups, in the backfield. For Middle's strength defensively is they're a really aggressive blitzing defense. It also has a front four that can get after you on their own. And so when they're defending the pass well, they're getting a lot of sack yards in particular, which is not going to show up on that passing yard disparity. So I'm very curious how Miami's offensive line holds up. I heard y'all talking about how you were pleased with how well they've developed this year.
Yeah, it's gotten better, man. It was really ugly, dude. It was ugly the last couple of years. It was unacceptable. And Mirabal has done a really nice job. They're not even close yet to being the kind of team that they've been in the past, and we're all been waiting for like 20 years for that to happen again. But there has been progress, Sam. There has been progress, and we've been impressed with it.
Well, that's fantastic, and I think Middle's defensive line will pose a nice challenge for them. I think there's over 200 games of experience in the two deep at the collegiate level. They tied a program record against Colorado State with 9 sacks as a unit. So it's a group that really gets after the quarterback pretty well, and that often extends into the run game, which I think is why they've been able to be effective. But I think defensively, Middle will, at least through the first half, be able to hold their own until some of the depth gets in there. Now, obviously, Miami, if they can hit a couple of deep shots, there is been some communication issues in the back end, as I think they've got almost all new starters outside of maybe Teldrick Ross, who's moved over from corner to safety starting this year. So there's some exposing there if they can get some time for Tyler Van Dyke. But otherwise, I think that side of the ball might be a little bit more even than maybe some neutrals or some Miami fans are thinking on paper, at least.
Sam, thanks for joining us. Thanks for responding last night when you did, even though it was late, and I appreciate that. So by my count, correct me if I'm wrong, I counted 14 players from the state of Florida on Middle's roster. One of them from right down the street, Miami Central Senior High School, which is a 10-minute drive at most from Hard Rock Stadium. Dedrick Stanley, safety, sophomore from Central. Has there been any talk or any type of feeling that you get from these guys, especially Stanley, that's a homecoming? Because people like to play Miami, but any time that you go back home, all right, and not necessarily that all these guys from Miami, but you get up for that. So is there any added motivation that you can sense from the team, or have they talked about that? Because I know that I would be up coming home to play in front of a crowd like that or a team like this?
There's no question that the I think it's 12. I think we had a couple guys leave since the media guy was written from Florida. Are very excited about this game. Obviously, Miami's, even when they're down, is a huge measuring stick just for where you are as a program and where you are as a player. If you can compete against guys at Miami, you feel like you can compete really against anybody. And so I know for a lot of the guys, particularly from Florida, this is a really important game. And then on top of their family gets to come to the stadium. Middle's really fortunate that they play either FAU or FIU every single year on the road. So those kids in Florida will get at least one game in their home state every single year. Up until this year, obviously, FAU is moving on to the American Athletic, so that'll change starting next season. But, so getting two chances to see your son play is a big deal for a lot of these families. And so I'm sure that's, the guys in the stadium today are really excited to see their friends and family up in the stands.
By the way, just to give you a strange score with about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Georgia is leading Kent State 32-22.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Sean Lewis, head coach at Kent State, I've heard getting some buzz for some of the jobs already open on the market. So interesting program to watch. They played 3 bye games this year, so their record doesn't look great, but I'd be interested to see how Kent State does in MAC play for sure.
Former Saban stomping ground, right? Isn't that the original Saban stomping ground right there, Kent State? So there you go. But hey, man, that's why you got to take them all serious when it comes to it. All right, tell me about Chase Cunningham. Talk to me about this passing attack because, dude, they're not facing a good secondary. They're facing corners that will allow plays, and you heard us talk about it. Ball skills have not been impressive. So talk to me about Chase Cunningham and Frank Peasant and everybody else out there.
Yeah, Chase is a former walk-on with this program. He started in the program as a walk-on. He's on scholarship now. But obviously he's a little undersized for his quarterback. I think he's listed at 5'11". That's probably a little generous seeing him line up with a couple of the other guys out there. But with that, he has really good accuracy, particularly short to mid-range. That's where that high completion percentage you guys have noted comes from. So he's really good at executing, this air raid offense that Mitch Stewart, who's first year with the program and offensive coordinator, has implemented this year. And he's good at targeting, where the offense has given him space to get the ball off pretty quickly, which has been a necessity because the offensive line only returned one starter from last season. So they've been having some that was really, I think, the main issue at James Madison was the offensive line was not giving the offense much of anything to get going at times. And there were some execution problems in the back end as well, some drops from the wide receivers. It was just sort of anything that could go wrong went wrong up in the Shenandoah Valley that week. But the offensive line is young and they're getting retooled. A lot of guys from junior college ranks are rotating in there. And they've looked better the past 2 weeks, but obviously Miami's going to pose the toughest threat they're probably going to face all year on that offensive line. So that's probably my chief concern offensively is how well can the offensive line hold up? Can they scheme away anything? They did a good job against Tennessee State, doing some cut blocks, things like that to get the ball out quickly. And if they can do that, I think that they got a chance to move the ball a little bit. But it's definitely a short to mid-range passing and then setting up a long-range pass or setting up the run off of that. And so that's what I would look for when you're watching the team out there today. It's going to be a lot of 10 personnel, 4 wide, pretty much every single snap.
I mean, you answered the question I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you about, what they do to counter or offset Miami's pass rush. You talked about them having Chase get the ball out of his hands a little quicker and so on and so forth. What about in the red zone? Because Miami's experience in the red zone last week didn't go as planned. Miami came in with 9 points, as you know. Moved the ball great between the 20s, but you kind of had a little bit of a standstill once they reached the red zone, the red area. But in terms of Middle Tennessee State in the red zone, do they do anything different? Do they change things up, or is it still a 4-receiver type thing? Do they go to tight ends? Do they use Chase and his legs a little bit more? Is the game plan any different in the red zone for Middle Tennessee State?
They definitely have leaned on the run game a little bit more than they do in between the 20s when they get inside that 20-yard line. Frank Peasant, who's from Pensacola, another Florida kid, really good power runner. I like to say his best trait is he turns 2-yard gains into 5-yard ones in the middle of the field if you don't wrap him up and get him down quickly. But he's shown some good power, and they've started to work in a bit of a heavy package where they bring in some of those defensive linemen that get really good push and line them up as either tight ends or sort of H-backs in a heavy set, and they'll line up in the pistol, and Frank will line up behind them. And That was really effective last week. They did some stuff under Brent Dearman, who's currently the offensive coordinator at Florida Atlantic last year in similar sets. So they do have a heavy package that they work into, but a lot of times you're still going to see that base, 4 wide personnel initially, and then they'll throw that as a changeup sort of as you get a little bit closer, second or third down.
And
Sam,
sorry, just really quick
go ahead.
Sorry about that. Every team not every team, but a lot of times you see teams when they get into a big game like this, they might have something up their sleeve or in their bag. In terms of trick plays or anything like that, have you heard anything from the staff that maybe can kind of make you wonder if that's going to happen, or if you see that, or does the head coach have a history of pulling something out of in games like this?
They look, every time I go out to practice during the week, the one benefit for me is I work for the athletic department, so I get pretty free reign. And so I see some things that I'm not necessarily allowed to say a lot of the time. So, and sometimes they're working on stuff and I don't see it for another month. And sometimes they're working on stuff and I'll see it that very week. So there's a chance that they've got something cooked up for them, but I'm not going to put the cards out on the table or anything that, as far as I know, because I have no idea what their, game plan is, what their script is. And like I said, they work on stuff all the time that doesn't show up for another, couple weeks at times as well.
Got it. By the way, Georgia leading Kent State 32-22 with 7 minutes left in the fourth. Michigan is leading Maryland 24-19 with 9 minutes left in the fourth. And Wake Forest is leading Clemson 35-28 with 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter. There's some crazy stuff going on in college football right now. So that's why when we tell Canes fans, hey, you got to take this game serious. Now, having said that, Sam, let me contradict myself. They've got 6 turnovers in the last 2 games. They lost to the team that is 2-0 badly in James Madison at 44-7. They've beaten Colorado State 34-19 and Tennessee State 49-6, but those teams are a combined 0-6. So what's real? What's a mirage? Walk us through this.
Well, I think if you talk to a lot of Blue Raider fans before the season and you told them, hey, you're going to be 2-1 going into this Miami game, they'd be pretty happy with it. Now, they wouldn't necessarily be happy with the 44-7 loss in that thing. I think they would have liked to keep that a lot closer. But, you're playing on the road 2 games in a row to open the year, and then you come back home against a local FCS team, splitting those 2 road games and then beating that FCS team, coming into, a Miami team that's going to be overmatching you in a lot of positions, no question. And being 2-1, most people will be pretty pleased with that preseason. Now, obviously, the way the Middle got there has got some folks questioning things, but talking to the players and the coaches, they all say that James Madison was just sort of a huge wake-up call to everybody, that you've got to be able to execute, that maybe they were sleepwalking through some stuff. They weren't as sharp in their preparation as they used to. They mentioned that James Madison came out in some offensive sets and defensive sets they hadn't seen before, which can happen week one. You come out and the coordinators have changed, personnel's changed, they've got something new up their sleeve, and it's just hard to get ready for it. So they think that was more of a mirage, and the past 2 weeks have been more what they want to be, and it's given them some confidence going into this game that they have proof now that they can move the ball. They have proof that they can stop teams defensively. So, take the Miami jerseys off and it's just a completely different team in front of them. I don't think they'd be intimidated really by anybody. And so that gives you at least some internal confidence. And there's also some stuff from last season they're building on. They led the countries in takeaways a season ago, so that they feel like they got the ability to turn anybody over if they're given the opportunity. And they've got some, continuity on offense as far as quarterback and wide receivers. That group's been together a pretty long time. So they feel confident, but obviously it's a little different when you get out on the field and you're dealing with the speed that Miami has on all 3 levels on both sides of the ball.
Sam, quick question. So Miami lost last week. There's some things that the coaches want to see different in the next week, versus obviously Middle Tennessee State. Middle Tennessee State is coming off of a big win, but even still, there are probably some things that coaches want to see done a little bit better. Can you kind of expand on what happened if you can pick from a 49-6, drudging of Tennessee State, what in that game can be improved going into this week?
I think the coaching staff overall was pretty pleased with how the ones played that week. I think their main frustration was that when they got ahead and they put in some of the second team guys, that they didn't have the execution they wanted in sort of that depth group. And so obviously this is a game where you're maybe not going to dip into your depth as much as you would against, an 0-3 Tennessee State team. But sometimes, injuries happen. So sometimes, those guys have to get on the field. Guy's helmet falls off. They got to have a play. And so I'm sure the coaching staff was harping on those guys like, hey, you're going to probably have an opportunity at some point this season, maybe this week, maybe next week, and to get out there on the field and make a play. And we need to see y'all do a lot better in that regard. But otherwise, Tennessee State just didn't pose a ton of a threat to anything that Middle wanted to do. They rushed them well. They made tackles in space defensively, didn't give up any real big plays, explosive plays on that side of the ball. Offensively, they're able to pass the ball at field, move the ball, ran the ball extremely well against Tennessee State. That was the first time I think they had a 100-yard rusher. It's the second time they had one in the last 2 seasons as far as one individual back having 100 yards. So it's a team that hasn't run the ball historically, at least in recent years, really well out of the running back position. So that was a lot of positive signs. But you're going to beat who's in front of you. And so there's recognition that Miami and Tennessee State are really different. But I think they've built some confidence in seeing some proof of some of the stuff they've been implementing way back in spring ball that are coming to fruition now.
All right, Sam, give me the prediction, baby. What do you think happens today?
I think it's going to be pretty close to a cover for Middle. I think when the line opened up at 26.5, I felt pretty comfortable with the cover at 26.5. Now it's down. I've seen at 23 or so.
25.5.
Yeah. 23 is, I've seen some books 25.5. That's a lot closer to what it is. I think it's probably about a 24, 27 point game at the end of the day, coming down to, if a team can get a field goal on a certain drive or not. I think if Middle, ideally, it goes pretty similar to Southern Miss's game against y'all early on. And that they've got a shot to get some turnovers, get to Tower Van Dyke, maybe force him into a bad pass. They forced a couple fumbles on the year, maybe get a couple fumble luck. And, I heard you guys mention some special teams. Middle's already got 2 block kicks on the year, a block field goal and a block.
Oh, God, I don't want to hear that, Sam. Come on. What's wrong with you?
So they feel like if they can make something happen, and, that's what you got to do when you're coming in and you're probably a little overmatched talent-wise, got to get some of those, some people call it luck plays. Some people just call it taking advantage of the opportunities in front of you. You got to make that happen. And if that can happen,
is the coach a risk taker? Does he have some guts there? Is he willing to make some edgy calls? In other words,
I think Rick Stockstill's got the ability to roll the dice on 4th down if that's what's going to be needed to keep the team moving, particularly when you get pretty close to the end zone. He's shown a pretty good willingness to go for the points in games like these. I think Virginia Tech last year, there were several times that they were facing, a 4th and 4, 4th and 3, even a 4th and 6. And they were like, we need to go for it just to stay in this game and give ourselves a shot. So, they recognize this. Middle's not going to hurt in reputation if they lose by 21, if they lose by 31. It's going to be the same sort of read from everybody in the conference on that. And so if they can take a couple of those shots and make it a 14-point game, a 7-point game, and or even, pull out a win, that would certainly raise some eyebrows. But in my heart of hearts, I think it's Middle's probably covers, but it's tough to see a win unless some of those, special teams, defensive turnovers happen.
Yeah, they better take them serious because you can see what's going on in college football. Mm-hmm. You'll get surprised. Sam Dalton, correct?
Yes, sir.
There we go. Sam, thank you for taking some time. Great insight, my brother. Enjoy the college football Saturday, my friend. Appreciate you.
I will, you guys. Thanks you so much for having me on. Y'all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Sam. You too.
Thank you.
There you go. Excellent job by Sam Dalton, staff writer right there, and Middle Tennessee Athletics. And you can follow him, by the way, on Twitter at SJ Doughton, DOUGHTON. It's a beautiful thing. There you go. You know what I don't doubt? Cutter's Edge. I never doubt Cutter's Edge because their landscaping, their outdoor lighting, their irrigation, hardscape, artificial grass. Oh, and my doggies are loving the artificial grass, man. Yes, sir. Some of you out there like the natural grass. But no, we're talking about artificial here. 954-472-0622. Of course, they do natural grass, not the one you smoke, the one you can actually put, but I did the artificial in the backyard because it's the best thing for the doggies. It is the best, baby. And they do all full landscape designs. And what I love is my dogs go outside and they bring no dirt inside. Oh, it is awesome. They're not eating grass either because I got two of my 5 dogs are kind of dummies. And once in a while, they'll eat some grass or something. And then they're throwing it up 5 minutes later. Cutter's Edge, of course, total landscape solutions, lawn and landscape maintenance for medium to large complexes out there, condominiums, corporate parks, large commercial building complexes in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. They service all of South Florida. They got nearly like 70 trucks or something crazy like that. In fact, Will was here this morning over at our place, and they do it all. Landscape lighting from pathways, trees, basic LED lights to color-changing technology. But you go by my house tonight, and we're in Canes colors. You come by tomorrow night, and we're in Dolphins colors. Yeah, baby. That's how we roll in the Alzugaray home, and you can do that also with Cutter's Edge. Make sure you call them 954-472-0622. And by the way, we're in the season, and if you've got trees that are close to power lines or on your roof or anything like, don't get your crazy ass on a ladder or on a roof and you can hurt yourself. And don't go hiring people that are not fully insured, because if they get injured on your property, they'll sue you. Call the people like Cutter's Edge. They're pros and they're insured, so you are safe every way possible from any accident and any legal issues. Yet peace of mind is so important. You got rid of those branches near the wires. You got rid of the branches on your roof. You didn't fall off the roof. Somebody else didn't fall off the roof. And guess what? They're professionals and they're insured. Oh my God, I can sleep with peace of mind because I called CuttersEdgePro.com. Go to the website, experience it yourself. Go on Instagram. Catch them tomorrow on WIOD at noon. CuttersEdgePro.com. All right. We continue with the program, and there he is. All right.
I need to give him a call.
Huh?
I need to give them a call because I got 2 trees. The thing with my backyard here is that we live in a single-story townhome, right? And in this community, the only townhomes that actually have a fence in the backyard that opens out are the ones that are facing like a street. So I share a common fence with the townhome that's behind me. So they're gonna have to come in either if they do because I need 2 trees removed because I want some artificial stuff. So I'm gonna give them a call, but I'm wondering how they're gonna do that if there's no fence to come through. Like they're gonna have to take the tree over the roof.
They'll figure it out. They've got all kinds of funky equipment, bro. They got like 70 trucks.
That's crazy.
It's an enormous company, and they've got every tool possible. I just watched them redo my front and backyards, and just I mean, you go to Instagram, you go to their Instagram page, and it blows you away the kind of work that they do. So just in case you need some landscaping, maintenance, or you kind of need to clean up your yard because of the trees, call them. They will definitely take care of you. CuttersEdgePro.com is the website. That's where you've got to go. All right. We talk about this game. We've talked a little bit about the matchups going into this game. What concerns do you have going into this game, Mike McCoy?
Mental lapses more than anything, honestly. Okay, because a mature team would be able to know what they have to get better at from last week, and not only know what they have to get better, because Mario even said it in this Monday's press conference. He's like, we played hard, we played, with a will to win, but that's not good enough. Okay, that's not good enough. So he knows, like I said, man, I've been saying it, for weeks, or months since he's been hired, 9 months to be exact. He knows what it takes. So I want to see Miami get over the mental stuff. I want to see Gaddis and what he's going to do different in the red zone. I want to see if the play calls are any different. I want to see the continued play from the O-line, which took everybody by surprise last week. All right. But most importantly, I want to see how Miami's going to counter Middle Tennessee's passing game, because something tells me they're going to be able to not be able to, but get the ball out of their hands excuse me, I'm having a tongue twister. Something tells me that the game plan is to get the ball out of Chase Cunningham's hands very quickly because of Miami's pass rush, and they're going to be outmatched physically. And I'm wanting to see how Miami counters that. And the other thing is, if they're a passing team like that, and Miami secondary is on point, this game's going to take a very long time because incomplete pass after incomplete pass after incomplete pass. That's a thing. Miami's defense is probably going to be well rested depending on how the offense comes out. I think that Miami's going to pound it. I think as much as TVD has to get on track, I think Miami's going to start things off on the ground. I really do. And if it ain't broke, I don't think there's going to be much fixing, because at the end of the day, Mario wants to win. He doesn't care how. And if they're getting 5-6 carries a pop, yeah, you want to get your passing game involved, but you also want to get your starters out of there so that the second guys can come in. But then Andrew made a point. You maybe want to see TVD play until the fourth quarter just so he can kind of get on a rhythm. So, I know I was all over the place in my answer, but there's just so many. 3 games into the season, it's only 3 games into the season.
And remember, you got any questions, you can send them in on the YouTube chat board or on the Welt and Rayom text line at 855-912-1056. And Ken Helms says, got to get out of this game without a major injuries, rest up and get ready for the conference games. And that there's no doubt that that's true, but there's a lot of fine tuning you also have to do to get ready for all of that. Ken also says, want to see Big Leonard get more snaps. That's an interesting name.
Talk about LT56 Leonard Taylor. And look, I get it because he flashed last week. There are, I think, a couple plays.
Talented, bro.
Yeah, no, yeah. The kid is quick like a cat, and quick as a cat, and powerful, deceptively strong, because he doesn't look like a defensive tackle. He looks like a football player. He's a big dude, but he doesn't look like he's like a slim 300, if that makes sense. I mean, you look at him, it's like, yeah, like I said, he's a big dude, but he doesn't look like a 300 some odd pound, I love how he looks as an athlete.
No, it's like Williams. He passes the eye test like right away. Like the receiver that came back from suspension and got injured. You looked at him, you're like, hey man, there's a little something there. There's like a little spark there. Can we? Oh God, now he got a foot injury. Damn it. And so that sucks. When you get those kind of guys, you're like, okay. Charleston Rambo last year, since when he transferred over, and immediately you saw, you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, this guy's flashing. This guy wants to play, and Leonard does the same thing. He comes off, he jumps out of the screen.
And the thing about the D tackle the D tackle position for Miami historically is that when Miami's defenses are really good, you really only need one defensive tackle to flash. The last dominant defense Miami had was in an underwhelming 2018 season, where I think Miami, I don't remember what their record was, but it wasn't impressive. They ended up playing Wisconsin, I believe, second year in a row, and losing in that pinstripe bowl. But that defense was top notch. Gerald Willis was an elite defensive tackle in that Manny Diaz defense. This was the last year of Coach Richt at the head coach position, but that defense was awesome. Year before, 2017, you had 2 guys, right? The one that lost his arm, I can't remember his name, number 7. I'm drawing a blank right now. He lost his arm in that car accident, and I forget his name. But as long as Miami has that one defensive tackle, get to go ahead and wreak havoc, get into the backfield, then you got things working. Because you ask any opposing quarterback, any opposing offensive coordinator, the worst kind of pressure is the pressure in your face for your quarterback, up the middle, up the A, right up the A gap. And so that's how you disrupt an offense. And Leonard Taylor can do that. Okay, he can do that. So, like I said, a lot of quick passes, getting the ball out of the hands of Chase Cunningham quickly. I think Miami's fans should expect how Miami counters. Look, Kevin Steele has seen everything. Okay, the man is a relic in terms of how long he's been around the game, and I mean that in a good way, the most respectful. He's seen it all. You can't surprise him. You cannot surprise him. So, and he also has a good relationship with the staff. The head coach over at Middle Tenn State. He said that in his Monday press conference. So we'll see how prepared the defense is.
All right. It was ugly prior to the game. There was a lot of rain, and now apparently the weather is still affecting the game. Not going to affect our pregame show. We're going to end when we end. But it says, attention, please. There's inclement weather in the area that includes lightning. If you wish to seek shelter, please proceed to the stadium concourse. And so it looks like a 3:55 start now for the Canes. We'll be only going for a few more minutes, and then we'll join you after the game. But lightning delays are never fun. They're never a part that you want of any kind of sporting event. And it's hot, and people got rained on during the pregame tailgating. They got poured on, and then it went away, and now it came back. And so apparently, the weather's been kind of ugly out there. So now we hear that we're going to get a delay in this game, a 3:55 start between the Canes and Middle Tennessee State. So we'll see what else develops from all of this, but that kind of sucks that they get a little delay in this game.
So it does suck. So let's talk about how it's going to affect the game. All right, Miami has found their identity. They are a running team. We know that. All right, they proved it when they met adversity for the first time against Southern Miss 2 weeks ago. We saw they responded coming out the half, and we saw how they move the ball down the field in the likes of 175 rushing yards on the ground last week against probably the most talented defense that they'll see all year, at least defensive line that they'll see all year. It's raining. It's great for playmakers to have, a dry field and everything like that. So that's probably going to affect Middle Tennessee State more than it would affect Miami, because Miami, especially if it's raining, they're going to want to come out and establish the run. Historically, though, that field drains very, very well. Okay, that's one of the best fields in the NFL, and obviously for the past, I don't know how many years Miami has been at Hard Rock, best fields in college football, but that's a good thing. But it's still going to be wet. The ball is going to be wet, still going to be slippery, and who knows how long, if it's going to be raining on and off for the entire game. So that right there, I think Miami's going to be leaning on the run, especially to start the game. But Middle Tennessee State, I'm wondering how that's going to affect them in the passing game. I think it's going to affect them a lot more, or big time, period.
Yep, I'm with you there. All right, what's the prediction, Mike? What are you expecting?
I'm going to say Miami.
Will they cover? Let's put it that way, because I know you're going to pick them to win. We're all going to pick them to win pretty much. Will they cover is the question, 25.5.
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say they cover. And I'll even give you a score. I'll say Miami. I'm going to say Miami 38. I'll say Miami 38. And Middle Tennessee State, I'll give them 14.
I think this is a game where they get healthy offensively. I think watching what's gone on with Middle Tennessee State, and you're beating really bad teams, and then you didn't really you lost to what's not really a good team in James Madison. I just think that this is a team, and they have 6 turnovers in the last couple of games. I just think that Miami, this is a perfect game for you to get healthy, to feel better about yourself, to create some turnovers. I think this is a game where offensively, your receivers have an opportunity to make some plays. Hopefully, the one thing that I will say about the weather, Mikey, and this is the part that I don't like, is that it's already Middle Tennessee State, so you're not going to bring a great crowd. Even the people that bought season tickets, a lot of them may not show up. Less are going to show up having to deal with the rain and the humidity and the sweating and all that stuff. And I know that once you get in the stadium, you're on the roof, basically, in most spots. But the heat and the humidity get pretty bad in that stadium with the roof in. It gets kind of trapped up in there. You know what I'm saying? So it gets uncomfortable. And I think that creates less of a home field advantage, for the Canes. But this is the kind of game that the team has to carry itself. The emotions have to carry itself. And I think you want to exercise the demons of last week. If you're the receivers, you want to catch passes. If you're the offense, you want to start putting some more points on the board. If you're special teams, you know what? This week, let's not have any mistakes. I'm sure Cristobal was not very fun throughout the week getting prepared for this game. I'm sure he wasn't happy about a lot of the screw-ups during that week and the undisciplined penalties. Something tells me that if they've got quality young men in there, no matter how talented they are, Mike, they're going to care about all the screw-ups last week, and they're going to fix them this week. But if they don't, and the screw-ups continue and the undiscipline continues, then unfortunately that falls on your coaching staff, because that's your job. Is no matter how talented a player is, you must keep them on the discipline side. They have to learn to play discipline, something that did not happen under Manny Diaz and several other coaches before him, also Al Golden and everything else. I can talk about several coaches. So for me, there's a lot to work on, but I think there's a lot of opportunities in this game to right a lot of ills, because I think this is the team that kind of plays into some of those things for you. That's just me.
No, I can't disagree with that. And, I think that's a good problem to have. When you have problems that stem from your own mistakes, because that's how they lost last week, right?
Yeah.
You and I are in agreement, and most people are, that A&M didn't do anything special to beat Miami. It was mostly a victory because of Miami's and give A&M credit, they capitalized on those things, but a muffed punt and stuff like that, they changed huge momentum swings. But yeah, I think those are good problems to have. And like you said, if you have, we're going to find out who the leaders are. We said that last week, we're going to find out who the leaders are playing under the lights. But a lot of people pointed to this game, win or lose that A&M game, how you respond. Because say you beat A&M by 50, then you got Middle Tennessee State before a bye week in the ACC schedule. Ooh, trap game. But what if you lose? How do you respond? So depending on how you came off that A&M game, this is a game. This is one of those how you respond games that leaders need to take responsibility and accountability, and let's do this the right way, the Miami way. And like you said, how you look in a win is going to be important come ranking time, which AP poll really doesn't even matter. It's the 6 weeks into the season where the committee comes out to vote those top four, well, the top 25, but the top four, what matters. And so you're 100% right, man. It's going to be a game within the game, how they say.
By the way, they answered your question. Kendrick Norton was a gentleman that unfortunately lost his arm. William Quigley, of course, Cutter's Edge, says Big O Miami will use this game to create momentum for the remainder of the year, 56-10. That would be nice, because I laid the 25.5, Will. So, yeah, I need a big win. I just kind of get a feel that there was, like, a nice tongue lashing this week, and I just kind of get a feel that these kids are they're like, yeah, I'm not having another one of these weeks, and so they're going to respond overall. I think this is a good coaching staff. One of the things that I have likened a lot with both teams, and that's the Dolphins and the Canes, a lot of the stuff, a lot of the ills are kind of the same. And I think they both have great coaching staffs, but it takes a bit to kind of, although I think McDaniel inherited a better team to start with, and then their offseason really was just, monstrous. Whereas you can't do that in college football. I mean, unless you're able to, pluck away like the perfect guys to transfer over, it's going to be hard to kind of do that, but it takes a little bit more. But what I see in both, Mike, there are similarities in different things, but one of the ones that I've noticed is I think this is the coaching staff that knows how to reach their players. And I'm convinced that Mike McDaniel is also the guy that knows how to reach players. And people change, and things change, and people are different now than they were 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 60 years ago. And your thinking has to change. Your thinking has to evolve. And while Mario brings an old school approach to it, I think he also has a new school style to the old school approach. Whether it's the weight guy, what's his name? The guy with the mustache, what's his name now?
Fielder.
Feld.
Yes, Feld.
Oh,
Aaron Feld.
He's a raw energy, positive type guy. You know what I'm saying? And so he has different types of individuals on his staff that can reach kids in those plateaus where you can't be screaming and hollering the entire time.
No.
You become like the Peanuts. Wah, 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 because the teacher sounds the same. So that's why she sounds wah, 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 because you're really not paying attention to it, because it's just constant. You know what I mean? And so you have to change it up. And that's just the way people are nowadays. And I'm sure people are doing this in the workplace, in corporate America, like they're doing it in sports. You have a different work culture nowadays, just like players have a different work culture nowadays. They have more power, they have more say, they have more influence than they've ever had. Whereas in the past, you walked into the door and yes, sir, I'll do whatever you want. And that's just not the case anymore. That doesn't go. There's a partnership that goes with it, because now these players are also businessmen, because they've got NIL deals and they've got agents and they've got responsibilities that they didn't have before. So it's a completely different dynamic. And I just feel that Mario and his staff are better suited than the prior staffs, just like Mike McDaniel and his staff are better suited than prior staffs.
You hit the nail on the head when you said how this staff has the ability to reach players, and there's different types of coaches on the staff. But one thing that they're all the same.
Is what I said.
Plateaus,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And the one thing that I think they're all similar in comparison to prior regimes where they didn't have this as much is all of these guys are good teachers. And that's what Miami needed. They needed to be coached. They needed to be taught. It wasn't, hey, go do this. And then these guys adjust.
That's what Miraball's doing, by the way, with the offensive line. That's coaching, dude.
And these guys, that's Miraball. And these guys respect these coaches. Just like you said, I'm not going to want to hear Mario again. Are you going to want to hear Mario again? I don't want to hear Mario again. Let's get this shit done. Let's do this the right way. And you saw that not a little birdie told me, it was reported that Mario didn't have to do all of that. And I thought it was going to take place, but it didn't. Halftime Southern Miss, there was not a lot of tongue lashing and there wasn't a lot of yelling. It was the players saying, come on, guys, like, let's go. All right. And they did that. So they responded on their own, and that's accountability. And that it was, that's how it starts. So you have Steele, who's an older guy, part of the oldest coach on the staff. And then, younger guys, Feld, like you said, the rah-rah guy, Mario, which everybody respects. Everybody sits up a little bit straighter when Mario comes in the room. All of these coaches are respected, okay? Gaddis, a guy that relates very well with the players. You know what I'm saying? Everybody loves the guy. And you got Hall of Famers, Reed. You don't think that it matters when Jason Taylor's on the field and in the locker room. Like, it's a on paper, best staff in the ACC, top 3 to 5 staff in the country on paper. And then you can say that at the end of the season, yes, it's a top 5-3 staff after seeing how they work together. And if they work together, so far, so good. But you hit the nail on the head, man. Like, these kids, they're not going to want to, go through that a second week in a row, depending on how practice went. So my money, and I have to change, the prediction, because I said they're going to cover, but then 38-14 doesn't really say that. So I'm going to say 41-14, and Andy gets 2 field goals. But I hope that there's a strong response, and hopefully the weather doesn't have too much of an influence on how Miami's offense or defense looks on the field.
Just to give you a little rundown real quickly here with some of the scores. Maryland is leading Michigan leading Maryland 34-27, 45 seconds left in the fourth. So it looks like Michigan will hang on. Wake Forest and Clemson are now tied at 38 with 49 seconds left in the game. Wake Forest has the ball at the 50-yard line. So they have a chance to get into field goal range and try to win this one. Penn State routed Central Michigan. Yes, Sean.
4th and 5 for Wake Forest now. They're making the decision on whether the punter go for it right now. They called it.
What line? Where are they at?
I don't know. They're at the 50, but it's 4th and 5. And
you got to go for it. You got to go for it.
It was 3rd and 17. They got a big gain. Now make it 4th and 5. Timeout.
So you got to go for it. So. We'll see. Well, how many seconds left? Wait, I'm sorry, because if you fail,
49. No, what you read was right. All that is right. It's just.
Oh, okay.
It's 49 seconds.
No, you got to punt. You got to punt. You got to punt. You can't give it to you. If you fail, you give it to them. No, you got to punt. You got to pin them. Yeah, unfortunately, you got to pin them. Michigan did hang on to beat Maryland 34-27. Penn State routed Central Michigan 33-14. Baylor beat Iowa State 31-24. So the on, by the way, So they did play well. Georgia hung on to beat Kent State 39-22, and Pittsburgh over Rhode Island. That doesn't even count. Whatever. That's Rhode Island.
The fact that Kent State went into,
I know.
the hedges inside the, how they say they play inside the hedges, and they put 22 on a defense that barely allowed a touchdown being scored last season is very impressive.
Yep.
Very
Ukulele,
impressive.
by the way, went 23 of 37 so far, 327 yards and 3 touchdowns for the instrument that Tua plays with Clemson. Ukulele. Anyway, we thank Sean Stanley, the man that masters this program, the executive producer, Chad Shobe, also always kicking ass. Both guys are ready, baby, for Monday. We're going to be at Media Day for the Heat. So, we've got the Canes coverage today for you. We'll be back for the post-game show. Manny Navarro will join us. Tomorrow we will cover the Dolphins pre and post. We'll have all the action for you. We'll have Mike McDaniel into his press conferences after that big win. Monday, we're at Heat Media Day. So we'll have the coach and the players, and we're going to have all kinds of exclusive interviews for you, all kinds of great stuff as we continue to expand the platform and continue to bring you as much content as possible. So we appreciate all of you out there. We're going to be back. Mike, myself, Sean, Chad will be back this afternoon or early evening, apparently at this pace with the delays. And we'll talk about the Canes and Middle Tennessee State. On behalf of Mike, Sean, and Chad, I'm Orlando Alzugaray. Thank you for listening to the Miami Hurricanes pregame show on the Sports Talk 305 Network.
This has been the Miami Hurricanes pregame show on the Sports Talk 305 Network. The show is mastered by Sean Stanley and Chad Shobe. Please subscribe to our platform by searching Big O Radio Show on all digital avenues. We'll be back with a complete wrap-up of the game once the last second ticks off the clock. Thank you for your support and enjoy the game.